Welcome to the Trust Factor Radio, bringing you interviews and insights to unlock the power of the subconscious mind to create authority, credibility, and trust. With your host, the Authority Architect and best-selling author, Neil Howe.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today my special guest is Eric Levitt. He is a Massachusetts bankruptcy attorney, and he helps people in financial distress to eliminate that distress through the bankruptcy code. Eric has an engineering degree from Fairleigh Dickenson University, an MBA from Providence College, and his law degree from the University of Massachusetts School of Law. And he has been practicing bankruptcy law for over 9 years. Eric Levitt, welcome to the show.
Hi, Neil. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. Lots to talk about here today. The financial situation that's going on in the country right now with this global pandemic is really going to affect the United States, I think, as well as the world. Things have come to a halt. Businesses are closed. The economy the markets are crashing. There's going to be a big fallout because of all this. I want to talk about some of that kind of stuff, but before we get into that, give us a little bit of your background, Eric, and how you got started in bankruptcy.
Sure. Well, I started. I went to law school. First of all, I went to law school at night. I was working as an engineer at a local manufacturing company. And during that period of time, I wanted to get a law degree. And initially, I was thinking I'd go for patent law, being an engineer. But after some time, I found out it just was not my cup of tea. It's not something that really interested me. I had a good friend that was a bankruptcy attorney, and I started talking to him, and he kind of showed me the ropes and let me know exactly what a bankruptcy attorney does and how they interact with the community and how they help people. And before I knew it, I was practicing bankruptcy.
Well, there you go. It's definitely a service that a lot of people need. Normally, a lot of people need that. They have some debts and they can't pay them back. They need to find a way to get out of them. Bankruptcy is definitely a way for them to do that, a fresh start. But what do you think about what's going on in the world right now and how that's going to affect people's futures?
Truthfully, I'm stunned like everyone else. If I had a crystal ball, that would be helpful. But the truth is, I don't know how this is going to affect people's futures. It's so mass, and I think that only time is going to tell how this is going to play out. It's the government intervention should help a lot. Hopefully, people either keeping their jobs or, if not, at least getting some sort of pay during a period of time when they're not bringing in any income. If you can receive 4 months of unemployment at your full pay, which they were talking about giving, then obviously that's a huge help. And if businesses can keep going after that point, hire back these people, and not miss a beat, obviously that's the best of the best situation that could happen.
Well, that would be the ideal situation, probably. But do you think businesses are going to get back to how it was and not miss a beat, like you say, or are they going to be crippled financially with the outgoing money and not bringing it in fast enough?
I think there's going to be a combination. I think there's going to be some large businesses that have enough capital to survive this crisis, And I think there's going to be a lot of small businesses that are just not going to make it through because they just don't have the financial resources to go months on end with no income. So my guess would be that the larger corporations, plus with some help with the federal government, they'll make it through. But small restaurateurs and anybody who owns a small business is going to have a hard time.
Yeah, like you said, those large corporations are going to have, more cash available to keep going. But, the backbone of this country is built on the small businesses. They're the ones that employ the vast majority of your local population. What do you see as the future for them?
I don't know. I wish I could tell you. I'm an optimist, so I don't like to be bleak, and I try my hardest to not be a doomsday predictor. So it's going to be business by business, piece by piece. Do they have a landlord that is capable of not collecting rent from them for a bit of time, because the landlord's in a better financial situation and they let them go a couple of months without paying or even longer than that? Do they have a loyal clientele that, will come rushing back with pent up demand, or do they not? So I think, certainly the weaker of the businesses are just going to go out, and those people are going to have to either try to start a new business or retire. I mean, it's not going to be that much different than the past financial crisis, where there was a large number of unemployed people, even up to 10 years later, that they just never even tried to get a job. They just were done, and eventually they just took their Social Security and went on their own way. So I see a mix of things occurring, and people that work for those businesses, those people are going to be devastated because everybody can't work for Amazon or Walmart or you name the other big company. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of places that are still open, thankfully. The grocery stores, the Amazons, the Walmarts, so that we can get the things that we need. But, most of the retail is all closed down, and, service-based businesses are really going to hurt with this. Do you think that initial stimulus that they're talking about for individuals is going to be enough to get them through? And, what kind of long-term effect do you think it will have with the government, handing out money to people?
Well, first of all, no, it's not enough. I mean, it's a Band-Aid at best. I mean, $3,000 might be a nice chunk of money if you're going along your merry way and somebody gives you $3,000. But when it comes to your monthly expenses, $3,000 is a drop in the bucket. Most, if somebody's renting an apartment, they're paying anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a month right there. And then that's before, groceries and utilities and automobile payments and insurance. So the $3,000, while isn't going to hurt, is absolutely not going to help that much. The unemployment, if the unemployment goes for 4 months and you can get your full paycheck, that's actually pretty helpful, because at least then you have time to think and figure out at least what your next options are. if the company you're working for is no longer in business or whatever. So, but in general, the stimulus is or whatever the name of it is nice, but I don't think it's adequate.
Well, it will be interesting to see. Like you said, time will tell. But I can imagine that a lot of people in this stressful situation are going to put money on credit cards if they have them, right?
There's no choice.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to pay your utility, or you have to go buy food and you don't have money, you're gonna, survival of the fittest. You have to do something, and your credit card is something that will come in handy at that point. Robbing Peter to pay Paul works for a little bit, but eventually, you have to, the bill's going to come in. So that's good. That's where things will really get, a bit disconcerting.
So from an individual point of view, talking maybe 3, 4, 6 months or more down the road, they've accumulated all this debt, and they might have got a job back, and they're starting to make a little bit of money again, but they're never going to pay off that debt that they've accrued during this time. What do you suggest for them to do?
Well, people have, and everybody's everybody has a different story in a different situation. But the rule of thumb that I generally use is, if somebody has over $10,000 worth of credit card debt, most of the time that person is paying a minimum balance. And when you pay a minimum balance, you're not covering the interest. So your balance actually goes up every month. Anybody in that situation should contact a bankruptcy attorney. There's debt consolidation as an option, but debt consolidation is very tricky. I always use the 80-20 rule. It helps about 20% of the people, and doesn't help about 80% of the people. And I'm not even so sure that those percentages will stand true now, because with debt consolidation, it works for somebody who had a job loss, was temporarily using a credit card to get by, then got another job. In their new job, they're making more money than they were in their previous job. So it gives you the ability to pay back that debt without filing bankruptcy. And some of the debt consolidation companies do a good job reducing fees, interest, and penalties. But for the majority of people, bankruptcy is a better option. The other option that somebody would have is to make a deal with a credit card company, and they'll take, if they owe $10,000, maybe you can make a deal with a credit card company that to get rid of the debt for, say, $5,000 in a lump sum payment. You got to be careful of that for two reasons. One, there's a tax burden of forgiveness of debt that doesn't happen with a filing of a bankruptcy. And two, it still is not great for your credit, which is the reason most people try to do it. They think it's an improvement for your credit. But the truth is, a bankruptcy is actually a better way, because it's kind of like just getting rid of the cancer right away and then giving you a fresh start, as opposed to trying to mope through it and try to build your credit after that, which is usually much harder to do.
Yeah, I think some people still have a stigma about bankruptcy, is that it's going to be on your credit for 10 years, and you're never going to be able to get a house or a car or anything ever again. Is that the case?
So no, a couple of things. One, no. So it is on your credit report for 10 years. But the important part about credit isn't what's on your credit report. It's your credit score. So the sooner that you can build up your credit after whatever, if you file bankruptcy or whatever the case is, the better off you'll be and the easier it will be for you to get credit and get credit at a reasonable interest rate. So yes, it's on there, but and to be honest with you, the stigma is gone because so many people filed bankruptcy in the last financial crisis that it's more commonplace than anybody would imagine.
Okay, so there's different types of bankruptcy that people can file. Walk me through the most common ones, and what you think people will need to file after this crisis.
Sure. So, and even before that, I just want to go over one more thing. If somebody finds themselves even thinking about going into their 401k, at that point in time, bankruptcy should be a serious consideration because that money, and we can go over this later, but that money is completely exempt from the reach of the trustee, meaning you can keep that money through bankruptcy. So that's for your retirement. You should, I meet so many clients that have, gone through their entire 401k and then they'll call me. And it's just disturbing to me because I could have saved, all that money and they could have been there for their retirement had they called me prior to them.
Well, yeah, and that's about, knowing the answers to the questions that you should be asking a bankruptcy attorney. It's about becoming educated about it. I think there's a lot of information out there on the net now to where people have access to these answers, but ultimately, unless you look for it and unless you ask somebody, you're not going to get the answer that you need. And it seems such a shame to go through all that savings when you could have saved it.
Yeah, you can't be you have to be proactive. You can't be like an ostrich and put your head in the sand. You gotta really be proactive and investigate, educate yourself, and know, and then talk to anybody that or anybody that might be able to help you answer questions, so you're fully informed, and then you can make a decent decision. But like I said, so many clients have used their entire 401k savings or whatever it is, 401(b), and next thing you know, they are they're filing bankruptcy and they have no money. Go ahead.
So what do you think holds them back? Do you think it's just a lack of knowledge, or do they still think that, well, a bankruptcy is, the wrong thing to do, and, I don't want to have that on me, or I don't want to have it on my credit like we talked about before?
Yeah, I'm sure that's a major reason why people don't file. They don't want. The thing is, who looks at your credit report besides you and a few of a very, very select people, and you got to weigh, okay, filing bankruptcy versus using up your retirement savings, and you got to come to a realization that even though this is not something you ever planned to do in your life and you've always had good credit, or whatever the situation is, you got to look at what's happening right now and be able to make a decision that's going to secure your future, not make you look good to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. All right, so briefly go over the different types of bankruptcy that might be applicable to individuals.
Sure. So there's two chapters of the bankruptcy code that are applicable to consumers. The most common is Chapter 7, liquidation bankruptcy. And what that does is that eliminates your unsecured debt. So your credit card bills, your medical bills, your unsecured loans, anything else like that gets discharged in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And there's a couple of things. So you have to be able to qualify for a Chapter 7, meaning there's something called a means test that determines whether or not you can file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And that means test calculation just takes the median income for your family size in the state in which you live and says, well, if you make below this amount, then you can automatically qualify for filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And for most people who are in debt, that's the bankruptcy chapter that works for them. There's also a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Chapter 13 are for individuals who make a plan to pay creditors back over a period of time. Chapter 13s are for mainly two groups of people. One, the group of people that fail the means test calculation, meaning they make too much money for their family size in their state, so they don't qualify for filing Chapter 7. And also, if somebody's behind in their mortgage or auto payments, and they want to make those payments up over a period of time, then we file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy for them, and they can make up those secured payments through a plan over a 5-year period.
Okay, so if you have a mortgage and you've been paying it for 20 years maybe, and you got a car that's almost paid off, and you've just fallen behind a little bit, Chapter 13 would be the best bet.
Yeah, and again, it depends. Like when you say falling behind a little bit, like in general, at least in the past, a bank will not threaten foreclosure or repossession if the person is less than 3 months behind. But once that 3-month mark hits, that's when banks tend to get a little more aggressive. And that's when somebody should start thinking about filing a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Now, in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, there's a bit of a caveat, because you have to be able to, why did you get into the position you were in the first place? And what's different now that's going to allow you to, when you file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, make up the payments that you've missed. Yes, you have 5 years to do it, so divided by 60 months, but in addition, keep up with your regular payments as they would have been. So your burden's a bit higher. So if there was a job loss and then you got a job, so you had a job loss, now you've missed 5-6 mortgage payments, but now you're employed and you're ready to get back on your feet, then a Chapter 13 would make sense, because now you can afford to make both the regular mortgage payments and the payment to make up the arrearage on whether it was an auto payment or a house payment.
So what does Chapter 7 do? That's the liquidation bankruptcy. If you have a house you've been paying on for 20 years and you've got cars that you've almost paid off, what does a Chapter 7 do for them?
Well, a Chapter 7 will allow a person to both keep their automobiles and keep their house. Like we say, as long as they're up to date on those, I always tell people, if you're going to make a payment, your house payment first, your auto payment second. Those are the most important. If somebody's up to date on those payments, and they qualify for a Chapter 7 through the means test calculation, it's about a 4-month process from beginning to end. And at the end, when you get your notice of discharge, all your unsecured debts are discharged. So again, that means all your credit card debt, all your medical bills, all your unsecured loans, you no longer, and there's no tax burden. So you get a true fresh start at the end of a Chapter 7.
Now, we haven't talked about medical bills. You just mentioned there. I understand that that is one of the major reasons for bankruptcy.
Yes, medical bills are considered the number one uh, reason for people filing. I think that this current crisis could change that a bit because, um, although I don't know that for a fact, I think that just job loss is going to be going to overtake that. But yes, a lot of people get, they get ill, and whether it's cancer treatments or any kind of whatever the ailment is, um, the debt at the end of the bankruptcy, all medical debt is discharged. So because medical debt it's very expensive to go to the hospital, and people want to get cured, and they'll do whatever they have to do to address that, but it's very expensive. And generally people's insurance, if they have insurance, and that's obviously a good thing, but whether or not it's covered or whether or not your deductible is too high, who knows. And the other thing with insurance is no, we're not going to talk about insurance, but you could go and make sure that the hospital you're going into is in your network, and you're all set. You figured, all right, I'm not going to, my insurance company is going to cover this. I'm all set. But then you find out that some part of that, the anesthesiologist or some part of the medical team is not in your network. Well, you get billed for that, and that throws people a big curve because they weren't expecting that.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncontrollables, especially in an emergency situation. You just go to the nearest place, or sometimes where the ambulance takes you, and you have to deal with the financial aftermath later. And yeah, that can be a huge issue to people. How about college loans, student loans? Are they covered with bankruptcy now?
So no. And it's it's a big controversy, and there just actually was a case in New York where a bankruptcy judge did discharge a student loan debt. That's going to be appealed, and I don't know what's going to happen on the appeal. Student loan debt is honestly its own issue, and I don't know what the government's going to do or what Congress is going to do to address it, but something has to be done because I don't know if bankruptcy is the right thing, or there's a lot of different plans out there that politicians have to address it. But when somebody has $100,000 or $200,000 worth of student loan debt, it's insurmountable. They just live with it, and there's nothing they can do.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is a shame. I think there's more student loan debt now than credit card debt. Is that the case?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, student loan debt is number 2 behind mortgage debt. And mortgage debt's a lot different because obviously that's secured to a house.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know honestly if bankruptcy is the right mechanism to address it. It might be, but something will have to change in the near future, with colleges costing $30,000 to $70,000 a year, and people are told that they have to go to college in order to get a job and have a decent life. So people are doing what they want to do, but what they think they need to do, but it's just too expensive. Nobody should graduate college with more than, say, $20,000 worth of debt. That is, while a high number is still manageable, but nobody should go more than that.
Right. Well, there's definitely a lot to think about, and we are in a time of change now. Our world has completely changed in the last 3-4 weeks, and we don't really know what the outcome of that is going to be. But I'm sure a lot of these things will be getting looked at and have to be decided by the right people. But ultimately, there's going to be a lot of people hurting as well, and they're going to be looking for your help, Eric, in order to get their questions answered. If people want to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to do that?
So my website is bankruptcycapecod.com. Name of my firm is Common Law Associates. Phone number is 508-775-0815. But if you find yourself in financial trouble, investigate, educate yourself, whether it's me or someone else, and look to save your future. And make a decision that sometimes is a hard decision, but make the decision that's going to be best for you in your future.
Well, I appreciate you talking to me today. I know there's lots of questions that you can answer. We only covered a few here, but you perform a great service for people. It is a much needed service. Is to be able to get that fresh start, means a lot to individuals, to families, to businesses as well. So I appreciate you, Eric, doing what you do. And if anybody's in the Massachusetts, Cape Cod area, make sure you reach out to Eric at his website, bankruptcycapecod.com. And Eric Levitt, thank you very much for being my guest on the Trust Factor Radio today.
Thank you very much, Neil. I appreciate the questions, and I hope I was able to at least be a little informative.
Most certainly. Thank you. And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
You've been listening to the Trust Factor Radio with Neil Howe. To learn about the resources mentioned in the show and to listen to past episodes, go to thetrustfactorradio.com. To get a copy of the book, The Trust Factor, go to thetrustfactorbook.com. If you are ready to act now and build your authority, credibility, and trust, schedule a consultation with Neil at theauthorityarchitect.com.